Hi, my name's Thompson. I head up Carpenter Box Financial Advisers, and yesterday's budget was quite a significant change for the financial services industry, most noticeably around pensions. So this has been in the press significantly over the course of the last day or so since the announcements, as there has been a big shake-up of the tax-free allowances or the tax beneficial allowances that you get when saving to a pension. So what are these allowances? Well, first of all, we've got something called the annual allowance. This is the most that you can save on an annual basis to a pension. And it had been set, the allowance had been set at the lower of £40,000 or your annual earnings. So by example, if you earned £60,000, you were capped each year at £40,000. And if you earned £20,000, you would be capped by your salary at £20,000. So that's the most you can put in each year and receive tax relief on those contributions. That annual allowance figure has increased from £40,000 to £60,000. And this would be really beneficial for those who either have spare capital or spare income that they can save on a regular basis to a pension arrangement, or indeed those workers who have capital saved up in the background and are simply wishing to mitigate tax, because the government has effectively given you a threshold that's £20,000 higher, which can lead to quite a significant additional tax saving on an annual basis. So the increase in the annual allowance is really good news for lots of savers, especially those who earn above £40,000 in any 1 year, or indeed company owners who might wish to remunerate themselves through a pension contribution rather than simply a salary. Now, the other allowance that was primary allowance that we had to give consideration to was what's called the lifetime allowance. Now, this is the most that you can save into a pension through the course of your lifetime and retain the tax efficiency of that contract. And that lifetime allowance was initially set at 1.5 million when it came in back in 2006, and had increased to as high as 1.8 million as the initial increases took place. Then the coalition government in the sort of early 2010s, they decided that they wanted to reduce that lifetime allowance. And over successive years, it was actually reduced all the way down to £1 million. It then subsequently increased again with inflation to 1,073,000, or just over 1,073,000. So quite big shifts with this lifetime allowance as the years have gone by from successive governments in terms of how they make their policy. The recent rhetoric, and indeed back in 2021, the government announced that they were going to freeze the regular increase that had taken it from £1 million to 1,073,000. So certainly the pension industry had got used to the fact that this was a diminishing allowance designed to crimp those people who perhaps had the luxury of being able to save larger amounts into their pension. So the rumours that circled earlier in the week of this increasing to 1.8 million came as somewhat of a shock, and a subsequent announcement in the budget that indeed the lifetime allowance was actually going to be scrapped was even more surprising. Now, this is designed to help people, primarily doctors, public servants who might be in fairly senior positions. It's designed to stop them from retiring. Certainly, I've come across clients who had reached the lifetime allowance cap and said, well, look, there's little point saving anymore. So actually, I'm going to take this opportunity to retire. So I've definitely seen that in practice. Whether it will help people return to work as the government are intending, I don't know. But the notion of it stopping people from retiring, I think it's probably a very real position for the right type of employee who might decide to stay on a couple of years longer because they're not crimped in terms of how much they can save into their pension throughout their lifetime. So the headline news that the lifetime allowance was disappearing was certainly a welcome facet. But an interesting twist to that then came out in the detail is that the tax-free allowances that you can get from your pensions has not changed. So that is to say, you can get 25% of your pension that you save through your lifetime tax-free when you get to retirement, subject to the cap of the lifetime allowance of 1.73. That position has not changed. So if you now accrue a pension fund of £2 million, that's good news for you, but the tax-free amount that you would be able to get from that pension, the maximum will remain 25% of £1,073,000. It's just that you will not pay an onerous lifetime allowance tax charge on those savings that are in addition to the £1,073,000. And the onerous rates of tax that you have to pay at some point on pension savings in addition to the lifetime allowance was 55%. So it is a tax giveaway from the government, but the fact that they've restricted that tax-free element, it's not quite as good as the initial statement would have you believe. But combined with the changes to the annual allowance, it's certainly good news for those people who are able to take advantage of those allowances. It's a big policy shift. It's away from where the government had been going, and it's certainly beneficial. There are some other further allowances that they amended, which will affect people who are higher earners, which will retain the ability for those people to pay slightly higher amounts into their pension. And for those who've previously retired and drawn money from their pension, if they now return to work, they've changed the position in terms of the amount that they can now save into a pension. In recent times, they've restricted those contributions for those returning to work back down to £4,000, and they've increased that back to £10,000. So some leeway there for people returning to work, which is good news. So from a pension perspective, some seismic shifts in policy. They're really good news for people. And if you're an individual who's got an ability to save reasonable chunks of money to your pension, now is a really good time to strike. And if you're someone who's lucky enough to accrued a pension value that's approaching £1 million, there is going to be a big decision to make, or a change of consideration how you might use those pension funds. And we'd very much recommend that you speak to your financial advisor to discover how these changes affect you personally. Outside of pensions, some really good news around the assistance that the government will provide for childcare. They're starting in 2024. And again, those policies are designed to help people get back to work for longer. That's what the government are looking at doing. So from those 2 points of view, certainly the pensions and also the assistance from a childcare perspective, they are policies that we think will support that. And there's certainly policies that people in the right circumstance will be able to take advantage of. Thanks very much for listening.